It's time for you to manifest. It's time for you to manifest. The real you is breathing down your neck, begging you to manifest. Stop lying to yourself. Stop letting you down.
You're not doing this for yourself in present day. You doing this for what you want later.
And how many people do you think there are in the world right now, today, that are making choices that is going to create a future they don't want? You have an opportunity to do something different, to change the script, to flip the switch.
You gotta kill the blame game. Stop blaming it on the person that walked out on you. Stop blaming it on the person that overlooked you, that did not see it, that did not believe it. Stop blaming everybody and look yourself in the mirror. It's your fault you failed. You started the year with a little motivation and a few ideas, and it all tanked. And the thing you gotta ask yourself is, am I gonna repeat my history, or will I blaze a new trail?
See, the resilient mindset never lets failure stop it from fighting a good fight, because it knows it's more important than the current pain that you're feeling right now.
And so here's what I need you to do. Go find a mirror, go for a walk, go for a drive. Tell yourself, this is my year.
Every single thing that you do, you are casting a vote for your future self. So don't wait to feel pain. Don't wait to get yourself in a place where you're desperate to take action. Because to really win, it's not a destination. To win is that constant striving and struggling for you to become your future self.
Do something today that your future self will fall madly in love with you for.
Sometimes you need to go find a mirror and tell yourself with tears in your eyes, I am the problem. Once we stop accusing everybody else for our inconsistency and our lack of execution, all of a sudden the world opens up. Drop the frustration.
Once you discover your why, I want you to spend the rest of your life, take your time, your talent, and execute. Many influencers and speakers will give you a grocery list of things you need to buy into in order to be successful. I'm gonna give you 3 things. If you can just get these 3 things, then I wholeheartedly believe that the infection, the disease, the dysfunction of inconsistency will be literally eradicated out of your life. What's your why? You're gonna need discipline to do what you do. And you're gonna need perspective.
You might get tested today, but you were born with mental toughness to fight through. There is absolutely and never has been any give up in you. So a champion like you gonna do what you gotta do to make sure the day comes that you rewrite the history of your family, that you leave a legacy. Either you do what you should be doing right now so you can live like you wanna be living in the future, or you don't do what you should be doing right now. And I guarantee you, your future self will hate you for it.
Is it possible that the greatest thing you ever do in your life will be the person that you become? That every single day you have the opportunity, with all of the decisions that you make, to create a future self that is better than you, that is more courageous than you, that is someone that has achieved all of their goals and dreams and ambitions.
It's time to get out of the way. It is because of you that you are not where you want to be. You are the issue. It's you. Your issue is you. Every year we go through the same cycle. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to cut off all negative people. I'm going to be optimistic. Come on, we say all these things. 2 weeks later, everything hits the fan. If you study history, you will find that the men and women that turned the world upside down were the ones who got out of their own way. Your insecurity has been in the way too long. Your jealousy, your envy has been in the way too long. The fear you've been wrestling with has been in the way too long. Get out of the way.
I need you to do something today that your future self will thank you for. Don't you get it? Get busy living. Get busy giving. All of you, give the best of you. Not for you right now, but for the you in the future.
Please, please do yourself a favor and dispense with the excuses that you don't have time. Dispense with the excuse that you're not good enough. Dispense with the excuse that nobody will show up if I build it, that too many people are better than me. Drop out of the, I tried it last year and it didn't work. No, you didn't work. I get it, I get it. If we pull up your history, we'll find a lot of brokenness, we'll find a lot of trauma, we'll find a lot of empty places. If we pull up your history, we'll find a lot of failures. This must be the year that you are not defined by your history, but you fulfill your destiny. Why are you here? What were you placed here to do? Get to work.
I gotta get y'all one more, cause I'm in the game. Come on, game, stop glitching on me.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and
I study the darkness. You find no fucking answers in the light. None. It's too happy, it's too nice. And we don't need to be taught how to live in happiness. That just comes naturally to us. Happy moments, but the dark times, man, you can't get there unless you put yourself there. Life will take you there. But when you get into those dark moments, that's why people, how are you able, man, I couldn't fucking read and write till I was a junior in high school. How are you able to write like this, man? Motherfucker, I go to such places in my mind and I study the darkness. Like, it's not just physical. When I was growing up and I saw my mom getting beat and I got beat and I was some stuttering little black kid in an all-white school and I'm on stage and I gotta say one fucking line in front of fucking 15 people and I walk off stage kind of fucking stutter. All those insecurities and all those fucking things, man, I used to go home and cry. I'm like, oh my God, man, I'm fucked up. I'm so fucked up. Hang on, man. As I got older, we gotta study this shit, man. The only way we're gonna fucking get through this is if we study it. So every time I'm in a dark moment and life's fucked up around me, whether it be physical or just life, I get in it, man, with a fucking pen and paper. I'm like, okay, this fucking sucks. I can feel like I'm fucking losing my shit, but let's fucking study this. Let's come out of this motherfucker genius. You know, I studied the black matter of the mind. The dark matter, you know, like Stephen Hawking. If that's the name, I said it right. That's where I consider myself, man. You know, I was on a journey, just like you said. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. And so many people get it wrong. I don't give a f, man. You can't, for me, I cannot help people. There's a lot of cookie cutter shit out here in this world. Oh, discipline, wake up early, take a cold shower, this, that, whatever. It's all fucking bullshit. It's not. But what they don't teach you within the cookie cutter is like our minds are like a fucking garage. And the garage, if you open a garage and it's all cluttered up, it's all fucked up, you can't put your car in there. You got fucking boats and you got fucking kids' toys and shit everywhere. But if you organize that fucking garage and you put everything in its rightful spot, you can put that car in there. You can put two cars in there. You can put bikes in there. And that's like with the mind. People talk about discipline, determination, repetitions, and all this shit. Consistency. Why people fall off the wagon so often is because their mind is full of shit. There's no room in that mind for discipline. There's no room for consistency. They may do it once or twice, but then the mind takes over and that cluttered garage comes in, and then it's like a circuit breaker, man. A circuit breaker just overloads and fucking sparks. And our minds, that's our mind, man. It's like a fucking circuit breaker that has so much shit in it, you keep on loading it, you can't put any more into it. So I talk about it in there, man, so much about clearing space in your fucking mind so then you have room for all those discipline, waking up early, taking those, because they do mean something. But we don't get to that fucking dark matter that is keeping you from clearing out that mental garage.
That's a good way to put it, because that is the mind of most people, is filled with stuff that they have to move around to get to what they want, and it's constantly piling up, and they're unorganized. And
Organized mind, man. You're looking at, I got to take care of the kids' schedules all fucked up, my husband, my wife, you know, I'm going by McDonald's to get this, and I'm rushing my schedule. Everything's just.
I wish I was doing this, but I'm doing that.
That's it.
And that and this, and I want a raise, but I can't get one.
That's it.
My boss is an asshole.
Where's greatness in that, man?
Yeah.
You can't fit discipline into that. You can't fit structure. You can't fit consistency. You can't fit the grind. And then when you try, it gets fucking overrun by the fucking clutter in your fucked up mental garage.
My favorite quote of all time by T.S. Eliot: those willing to risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. Notice that it says those willing to risk. You have to risk failing. You have to risk getting mocked. You have to risk your safety and security if you want to find out how far you can go. If you want to find out how many lives you can touch. If you want to find out what it tastes like at the top, you have to be willing to risk going too far. Someone has to have the vision. God gives the vision to a person, and that person leads many people out of a dark situation. So you may be chosen with your vision to lead your family out of the cycle of limitations, to lead your people out of poverty. Maybe you were the leader that was called to lead everyday people to stop believing that there's no hope for their life.
God will test you with suffering. God will test you with challenges. God will test you with difficulties. God will test you with hard times. But that is when the proof of your faith is manifested. Not when everything is given to you. Not when it's easy. Not when times are simple. But in the challenges, do you curse God or do you bless Him for giving you the opportunity to experience these challenges and experiencing difficulties to become better and to get closer to Him?
Life is hard any way you choose to live it. Your dreams demand sacrifice, discipline, and resilience. Yes, it's hard. But so is living with the weight of unfulfilled visions and regret. Pain will always be a part of life. So tell me, what pain will you choose?
You should feel fantastic when you're given a challenge. When hard is put in front of you, you should say, finally, God, universe, finally you've given me something difficult. My life has been too easy for too long. I'm too capable to live such a meager existence and simply survive with sustenance and Netflix. I needed a challenge. I needed something difficult. Finally, thank you.
You're never going to be a good man or good at being a man without pain and suffering.
Right. All right. Before I get into this game, let's put on something to watch. I think this is going to be the best.
Oh no, we're embarrassed. We screwed up. Our warehouse is overloaded with survival food kits, but our mess is your gain.
The truth is, you're always present. You just don't know about it. You're over, there's some layer on top of the presence which somehow makes you think you're not in the present, but we're always in the present. Just the realization that you are is not there because it is overlaid by thoughts. If you take the thoughts away, you will realize, oh, there it is. The mind, or what we refer as the mind, is something very, very powerful. It's something very intelligent. It is something very, very powerful. Because it is so powerful, it is also that element about you which can make you suffer a lot, or which can make you flourish also a lot. It's the same mind that created the atom bomb, and it is the same mind that created all the technological developments that we have nowadays. So we can create something with the mind, or we can destroy something with the mind. We can use the mind to really use it and benefit our well-being, but we can also use the mind to destroy our well-being. So the question is, how do you use the mind in the proper way? This is like one question. So, and how now to make better use of the mind or better use of the presence? This is the point where now it comes to all different types of practices that are existing in this world, like focus on the breath, do your internal work, focus on the movement, focus on the sound, everything that brings you into the presence. Yeah, this one doesn't happen in the past. Yeah, there's nothing more real, there's nothing more direct, nothing more present than something like this. And so to remind yourself also again, to identify, okay, I'm drifting off right now, come back.
Yes, sir.
Because also when you do breathing methods, when I inhale and let's say I feel this stream of air that goes in. Also, in the moment where your mind is locked on the breath, so you follow the line as good as you can. This can only happen in the present. You cannot feel the breath of the past. There is no breath of the past. There is no inhalation of the future. Whatever you are sensing when you follow the stream of the breath, it's the presence. The breath never happens in the past and it never happens in the future.
Yes, sir.
It's that direct experience. So that means it doesn't matter eventually what is it that you are, let's say, locking your mind on, as long as it is something that happens in the presence. And this is where all these exercises are coming in. When I talk with you right now, I know what I talk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When I'm eating, I feel the sense of the food. When I'm sleeping, I'm really trying to enjoy the sense of body is resting, mind is resting. This is how sleep feels. Yeah, when I'm at a concert, listening to something, these are all type of practices. When I walk out in the street and the sun is shining on my face and the people are sitting there at the coffee and you hear they talking, but I walk and I feel, I sense, this is the sunshine, this is the people talking, my feet are moving, I'm here. I know what I do. I know what I'm surrounded with.
Yes, sir.
So being just very present, being very aware. Because without this awareness, it's like, without this awareness, you wouldn't even, or people maybe wouldn't even make a difference, whether you sit in a Porsche or if you just like sit in a Corvette. But if you are aware, you feel very, very clearly. A car that drives like this can only be a Porsche. Yeah. So awareness is key, because without it, there is no enjoyment.
Yeah.
You don't make use of what you have. Awareness is what is like making it finally real for you. You worked so hard for it. Now you have it. Enjoy it. Yeah, but you can't enjoy it if all the time you think about like last week, or if you think all the time about what happens in the future. Enjoying what you have is you arrive at exactly where you are right now with what you have. That's it. There is no wishing for something more of the future, and there's not wishing for something that wouldn't have happened of the past. No, you're in the presence. That's it. And the more you realize this about yourself, the more you integrate this just into your normal being, then it starts to shift. Yeah, just bring more presence into the present.
How often we have to do that? I mean, are you always present, or what percent of the time you try to be present?
At the moment, if I talk about myself, if I observe myself, the most of the time I would say I'm present, and I'm realizing when I'm not. So the amount of being absent is what I realize. When I'm absent, I realize it. When I'm present, it's my normal state.
Okay.
For other people, maybe it's the other way around. But this really depends on your personal relation and how much you practice. So eventually, the truth is, you're always present. You just don't know about it. You're over, there's some layer on top of the presence which somehow makes you think you're not in the present, but we're always in the present. Just the realization that you are is not there because it is overlaid by thoughts. If you take the thoughts away, you will realize, oh, there it is.
Yes, sir. Let's see what else we got. I'm just going down the list.
Dopamine, the neurochemical that causes you to self-distract, overeat, and waste hours on TikTok. But what if you could leverage your dopaminergic system to propel you forward such that it becomes your #1 tool for hyper-focus? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how. I'm Rian Doris, the CEO of Flow Research Collective, where we use neuroscience to help professionals access flow state at will. I'll never forget it. I was 9 days into a silent Zen meditation retreat. 16 hours of meditation a day, no talking, reading, or writing, eating only bland, boring, tasteless food. After the retreat, I caught a cab home and I was sitting in the back seat. My fingers were hovering over the screen of my phone. My anticipation was part excitement, part anxiety. Messages flooded in, and the dopamine reward that I got was intoxicating. The next day, though, I was still in this heavily meditated, Zen-like state, and I rediscovered the mundane aspects of life. I started working on a big, laborious, boring task that I'd been delaying for months. To my surprise, my attention was sucked into the present moment, and I got into a flow state almost immediately. That optimal state of effortless absorption and heightened productivity. The once dreaded task hooked me, and hours melted away. Any impulse I had to do anything else was overruled by the thrill of discovery and problem solving that had once seemed dull. My brain had been resensitized to find the work rewarding. How did this happen? How had what was once so boring become so rewarding? Well, it boils down to dopamine. Dopamine has been called a molecule of more. It's the reason that cocaine is so addictive and that scrolling social media is so compelling. It's also responsible for the high that we get from accomplishment. It makes us want more of whatever we've done to produce dopamine in the first place. And that brings us to the problem of dopamine detoxing. Scientifically, you can't really detox dopamine. It's a neurochemical. We can't function without it. Dopamine plays many roles, but one of its key roles is that of a focusing mechanism. Stimuli are paid attention to because of the dopamine they produce. So dopamine is the reward we get for engaging in certain activities. Now this is key. It's not stimulation that you want, it's the dopamine that the stimulation squirts that you want. However, through overstimulation, we can become desensitized to dopamine. When this happens, dopamine is still signaling, but fewer receptors receive the signal. So rather than detoxing dopamine, we want to resensitize ourselves to it. Low sensitivity to reward means you need lots of stimulation to capture your attention. High sensitivity to reward means you need less stimulation to capture your attention. Think of it like your ROI on dopamine. How much stimulation do you need to feel rewarded by dopamine and have your attention focus into the present moment? The less, the better. Do you get a hit of dopamine while listening to a nice song or watching a beautiful sunset? Or do you need to play a video game and scroll TikTok while simultaneously gobbling down ice cream to get that same hit of dopamine? Now, I used to fall more into the latter camp. I needed a lot of stimulation for my brain to get enough dopamine for the activity to feel rewarding. But I reset my reward sensitivity by sitting on a mat with my eyes closed for 16 hours a day. But I've since learned that such an approach is not needed. There are simpler ways to do it, which I'm going to show you in a second. So you can reset your sensitivity in minutes instead of days of silence like I went through. Now, through resensitizing, we boost our impulse control, which means we can delay gratification. Just imagine for a second what would happen to your productivity if you were as thrilled with writing a book or creating a product or whatever you have to do within your day job as you were with scrolling TikTok or checking your bank account after payday. Well, this is what's possible when you calibrate your resensitivity to reward. There's a few steps. Step 1, to master your dopaminergic system means to master the art of making the boring rewarding. First way to do this is to modify how we take breaks when we engage with work. Most people take dopamine-fueled breaks, scrolling social media, checking email, reading the news. The critical mistake when taking breaks is doing something that's more stimulating than the work that you're breaking from. Imagine trying to read a research paper after swiping through social media for an hour. Against instant and infinite novelty, reading that research paper is dull as all hell. Now, the inverse, stare at a wall for 20 minutes, doing nothing, not even meditating. Suddenly, that research paper is going to make you salivate. So take boring breaks that reset dopamine and heighten your reward sensitivity, and make whatever you do before and between work as boring as possible. We want our work to feel as easy as scrolling through social media. And that's a function of dropping the bar for what bores us to the floor and making the boring rewarding. So a 20-minute nap, walking, stretching, mindfulness, breath work, foam rolling, light exercise, all of these things are good things to do on a break. A favorite of mine, all jokes aside, is wall staring. I'll stop working and I'll start staring at a wall for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that.
Letting the snow globe of mine working. Function of dropping the bar for what bores us to the floor and making the.
I always wanted to do this, and I have done it, and I've now heard somebody else does it.
Boring rewarding. So a 20-minute nap, walking, stretching, mindfulness, breath work, foam rolling, light exercise, all of these things are good things to do on a break. A favorite of mine, all jokes aside, is wall staring. I'll stop working and I'll start staring at a wall for 5 or 10 minutes and just let things simmer, letting the snow globe of my attention just settle for a little bit. Because when on a break, you want to starve your brain of dopamine so that it craves getting back to work. Because ultimately, that dopamine-seeking caged rat inside you, one way or another, is going to have its way. So you may as well have it suck you back into work rather than having it keep you stuck on the thing you're doing in the break. Now, the second thing we want to do is inhabit the in-between. Just take a minute and think about what you did the last time you were waiting in a line or sitting alone at lunch while your friend ran to the bathroom. Well, you probably read your messages or scrolled through social media. That'd be my guess. Now, this is not ideal. We all have these in-between moments every day, but we're so accustomed to reaching for our phones for that quick hit of dopamine that it's almost subconscious. Inhabiting the in-between means leveraging these moments by allowing ourselves to simply settle, bringing ourselves back to the present. In these moments, we cut out the unintentional information consumption, which fractures our attention, further desensitizing our dopamine receptors, making us less sensitive to reward. A few tips for this. When you arrive early to a lunch meeting, just sit quietly without your phone. When waiting in line, pay attention to your breath. When commuting to work, just drive, ride, or walk in silence. You will be forced to be present and tolerate those moments where you don't have much stimulation or engagement. And this will make you more and more sensitive over time. Your baseline for what's boring will shift, and you'll cultivate a monk-like quality of mind, which is highly conducive to profound levels of focus and flow. Third thing we want to do is do everything one thing at a time. You can heighten reward sensitivity by simply doing things once at a time with singular focus.
Yes, sir.
Now, as I've improved my focus and my access to flow, there's certain things I've become worse at, and one of those things is multitasking. I've become way worse at multitasking. It's embarrassing, in fact. My team laughs at me because whenever I'm out on a walk with them of any kind and I need to send a text, I literally stop talking mid-sentence, reach out my phone, then I end up not walking either, and all of a sudden I'm standing in silence texting while we were mid-conversation and they're walking ahead of me. This is due to the interplay between the default mode network, the DMN, and the task positive network, the TPN, in the brain. When you're not engaged in a task, the default mode network is active. But when you're focused, the TPN, the task positive network, takes over. In my texting example, what's happening to me is I'm rapidly shifting from the default mode network of disengaged attention to the task positive network of engaged, focused attention. And this is creating a tunnel for my awareness such that it becomes attention, which then makes me oblivious to my surroundings, hence standing there, not talking and not walking while sending the text. Now, while this rapid shifting from the default mode network to the task positive network is kind of a burden for multitasking like texting while walking, it's a superpower for flow, because the faster you can shift from the default mode network to the task positive network, the faster you can engage focus.
Yes, sir.
And the higher your reward sensitivity, the easier it is to make this shift. And the faster you can make this shift, because you get more focusing neurochemistry funneled into the system in the form of dopamine. So to train this ability, focus on one thing at a time. It's that simple. The next time you're eating, just eat. When working, just work. When you have a conversation, just converse. Embrace life as a series of singular activities rather than scattered efforts to secrete dopamine through constant novelty seeking.
Yes, sir.
So to master your dopaminergic system, to propel you forward and access peak performance, take boring breaks so that what's boring becomes rewarding. Inhabit the in-between and do everything one thing at a time. Now, this week we're going to be breaking down the latest neuroscience research on flow state to give you practical tools so that you can plunge yourself into.
We're going to watch this next one too.
Excuse me, sir, would you like to earn income while you learn how to code?
Yeah, dog. Tell me more about that.
DevSlopes helps you earn income while learning how to code by helping you acquire paid freelance work under mentors who have years of professional experience. And if you click the link below, you could take a brief quiz and
Have you ever struggled to complete a task that should have taken 90 minutes, yet after 8 hours of slaving away, you still haven't finished the thing? Well, there's a neuroscientific explanation for why this happens, and a simple way to solve it. Behind the world's most successful people stand the 4 pillars of flow, which allows anyone to become effortlessly productive. Now, my name is Rian Doris, co-founder and CEO of Flow Research Collective, along with my partner, Stephen Kotler, and we've taught thousands of professionals and organizations how to access flow state at will so they can become drastically more productive in their working lives. It all comes down to the 4 pillars of flow state. First, there's the flow blockers. Second, flow proneness. Third, the flow triggers, and finally and fourth, the flow cycle. These are the pillars that power the brains of the most productive people on the planet. We'll cover each in a moment, but first, what is flow? I want you to remember for a second the last time you were hyper productive and totally absorbed in what you were doing. That was flow. Now, flow is a state of consciousness that makes work feel effortless. You've experienced flow, perhaps when you were riding a bike, surfing a wave, making music, singing, dancing, maybe working on a big project. Many of humanity's greatest accomplishments have happened in this state of flow. Alex Honnold, in the movie Free Solo, was in a flow state when he summited El Capitan with no gear. Sam Altman and his team at OpenAI, when they were coding ChatGPT, which has already changed the world, were deep in flow while doing it. When Marie Curie did her pioneering research and Einstein finally figured out the theory of relativity, they were harnessing the power of flow to pull off these superhuman feats that drove humanity forward. And flow isn't just a metaphor. In fact, over 10,000 research papers on flow have found that the neurophysiological shifts that occur while in flow increase the exact skills that research has shown are most critical to thriving in the 21st century, like learning, creativity, productivity. And the reason why Alex and Sam and Marie and Einstein were able to accomplish such feats is because of what happens in the body and in the brain when flow kicks in. From the neurochemical cascade of dopamine, norepinephrine, anandamide, serotonin, and endorphins, the alpha-theta brainwaves, and the performance-enhancing alteration to the neuroanatomical changes that occur in the brain in flow. Listen, this all sounds great. Flow sounds like some kind of a panacea that's going to solve all of your productivity and peak performance problems in a heartbeat. And that would actually be true if you could access a flow state on demand. But the problem is most of us can't. So until you train yourself in the 4 pillars of flow, flow is going to remain elusive, and nowhere is less conducive to accessing flow with consistency and reliability than the 21st century workplace and the 21st century way of working, where distractions are rampant, procrastination plagues us, and chronic stress is just considered the norm. You know that horrible feeling of being over-caffeinated and riddled with productivity guilt from delaying doing what you know you should have been doing, and then hitting lunchtime with barely any work done, even though half the day is done. Well, if this has ever happened to you, it's due to the flow blockers. If your goal were to run a marathon, First off, you'd have to ensure that you don't have some foundational injury or health condition that simply blocks you from doing it. And it's kind of similar when it comes to flow state, because research shows we're evolutionarily wired for flow. Your brain and body actually wants to kick you into a flow state when the conditions necessitate it. Most of the time, our 21st century work style blocks flow at every turn. Think about it. When you get up in the morning, what's the first thing you look at? Well, if you're like 80% of people, you check it within 15 minutes of waking up. And it's packed with flow blockers: distraction, uncertainty, task persistence deficit, attention deficit trait. And this one thing is the source of over a dozen other blockers for flow, like a dam blocking a river from naturally moving forward. Now, obviously this thing is your phone. So what's one tool to remove the most common source of flow blockers? Well, it's simple. We call it flow before phone. The golden rule is to get 2 to 3 hours of productive flow on your highest priority task in the morning before you turn on, or ideally even touch that device. Now, this is easier said than done. It's hard to change ingrained habits, especially when the habit itself is linked to a device that's designed to be addictive. But once you try this, and once you experience deeper and deeper states of flow, the flow states that you can access become more compelling and overrule the addiction. Next up, we have flow proneness. So let's say you have removed all the blockers and you still can't get into flow, because this is what happens to lots of people. It's because they miss the second thing, which again is flow proneness. So using the marathon analogy, consider this your overall fitness level, because flow proneness is simply your tendency to access flow and the likelihood of getting into flow at any given moment. We need to make our physiology, our body, our psychology up here, and our environment conducive to flow proneness to maximize our likelihood of accessing a flow state. Now, the easiest way to do this is to wake up and get to work within 90 seconds of opening your eyes. You're probably like, what? This sounds like some kind of a weird workaholic thing to do, but it's actually the opposite. By getting your most important work done within the first 2 to 3 hours of the day in a flow state, which is going to amplify productivity dramatically, you can relax a lot more the rest of the day. The neuroscientific reason to do this is that your flow proneness is highest first thing in the morning. This works for a few reasons. One being that the brain waves of sleep, theta or delta, are similar to the alpha theta brain waves of flow. As a bonus, the first 90 seconds of the morning are also before the rest of the world can impose its will upon you, which makes it easier to focus. Okay, so you've removed the main source of flow blockers and you've increased your flow proneness. So how do you actually trigger flow directly? Well, this is where the flow triggers come in. These are preconditions that instantly drive us into flow. Now, back in the 1960s, psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow, who coined the term flow, identified several of these triggers. And since then, Stephen Kotler and other researchers have identified even more. While Mihai Csikszentmihalyi pioneered the psychological research on flow, Kotler has pioneered the neurobiological research on the state, and is commonly regarded as the world's leading expert on flow. Now, the more triggers you have present in an activity at any one time, the faster you'll enter flow, the deeper the flow state will be, and the longer you'll be able to hold and sustain that flow state. Certain activities are naturally rich in flow triggers, like surfing, playing music, video gaming. The 3 first triggers for flow that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi identified were clear goals, immediate feedback, and the challenge skills balance. So here's an example of each of these in action. Let's say you're surfing. You spot the wave, you catch it, you ride it. These are the clear goals that are going to pop you into flow. Then you feel the balance on the board and the wave's power. This is immediate feedback. You're taking action in response to the information you're receiving from the wave. And as you continue surfing, you ride waves of varying sizes, varying difficulty, and if you're a surfer, varying weight, matching your skill level to keep engaged, which is the challenge skills balance at play. Now, that's all well and good for surfing, but what about your work? Well, the trick is to take these triggers and add them to activities that they don't necessarily show up within. So to apply this right away, you can tune the challenge skills balance by engaging in tasks that are about 4% more difficult than your current skill level. Our constant goal, as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book title suggests, is to move beyond boredom and anxiety. That's the sweet spot that leads to flow. The 4th pillar of flow is seldom discussed, but it's the reason behind the world's most productive people and how they operate. And it's called the flow cycle. Herb Benson was a Harvard cardiologist, and he wrote about this for the first time in his book called The Breakout Principle. And then Stephen Kotler mapped it further directly to flow in his book, The Rise of Superman. What the flow cycle tells us is that flow states are more like dimmer switches than light switches. Now first, there's struggle. This is a loading phase. It's when you first start a task and the neurochemistry involved, which is cortisol and norepinephrine, kind of makes you squirm. The discomfort causes us to want to avoid the task, relieve ourselves of the discomfort, and distract ourselves. The sad truth is that most people spend their entire careers dropping in and out of the first few minutes of the struggle phase. They never persist long enough to get into flow. They're an inch deep into work forever. So start by getting great at persisting through the struggle phase. This comes down to task persistence. You can do this with something that we call attention span stretching. So if you had a bar that you were hanging from every day, research shows that if you did that, you would actually grow by an inch in height. Similarly, if you stretch your attention span becomes longer. So for example, read a book all the way to attention, you grow by every day. So if you had a bar that you were hanging from every day, research shows that if you did that, you would actually grow by an inch in height. Similarly, if you stretch your attention span becomes longer. So for example, read a book all the way through, even if it's uncomfortable. Even if you retain less, you gain more sustained attention. You're training your attentional capacity. If you do a long meditation, just try adding another minute and another minute. Same with deep focused work. Add another minute, then another. Treat it like a muscle, max out the reps. Then release happens once you reach the edge of wrestling with the task or problem through sustaining focus and attention. As you persist, your brain increases dopamine, enhancing focus and motivation, finally popping you out of struggle through release and into the flow state itself. Then next up we have flow, which is the state we've been talking about this whole time. During flow, the prefrontal cortex deactivates to allow efficient, instinctive, rapid decision-making to occur. After the flow state itself, we have the recovery phase on the backside of flow, where we're replenishing the expensive neurochemistry that's involved in flow.
Yes, sir.
We're recuperating after expending so much energy, and we're integrating the knowledge or skills acquired during flow. So there you have it, the 4 pillars of flow, which underscore elite productivity, extreme accomplishment flow, which during flow.
Hold on, let me see.
So there you have it, the 4
blockers, proneness, triggers,
pillars of flow, which underscore elite productivity, extreme accomplishment, and hyper focus. By understanding and applying these pillars of flow, you can become consistently productive and achieve incredible results. Our goal here is to take every research paper on peak performance and flow and decipher it down into easy to watch, instantly applicable steps, so that as you stay tuned to our channel, you build the skill set of driving yourself into a flow state consistently, which is a critical skill set to thrive in the 21st century.
When I was dead, bro. Let me see, make me laugh.
Hey Meta, what is this artwork?
Comedian by Mauricio Catalan, worth $6.2 million.
What?
Face the comedian, I'm going to say to you, Steve Bluestein, Patricia Noy says, make me laugh. Good luck to you, Pat.
You know, I went to Emerson College in Boston, Massachusetts, and I had
I wondered did she ever laugh.
I want you to do the Pepsi challenge. You want to do the Pepsi challenge? All right. First of all, you get the Pepsi. Now, I want you to tell me, is this the Pepsi? What are you doing? Is this the Pepsi or is this the Kentucky Fried Chicken?
She laughing.
You
laughing. That's where they get this stuff from. All right, hold on. I think we seen these.
How can you tell a vampire has a cold?
I don't know.
He starts coughing.
Nothing. Oh. Want to hear a joke about construction?
Sure.
I'm still working on it.
Why did the police officer arrest the duck?
I don't know.
It was selling quack.
Did you hear that
it was selling quack?
Coffee.
Ah!
Nothing.
Yo.
Oh. Want to hear a joke about construction?
Sure.
I'm still working on it.
Why did the police officer arrest the duck?
I don't know.
It was selling quack.
It was selling quack. Yeah.
Did you hear that they outlawed the
Yes,
round
sir.
bales of hay for farmers?
That's the first one I'ma ever remember. That's the first one I'ma ever remember. Oh my gosh.
Did you hear that they outlawed the round bales of hay for farmers? The cows weren't getting a good square meal.
Try me again.
My fiance said, "Stop acting like a flamingo." I manned up and put my foot down.
Your whole face is shaking.
Why is Sweden so good at keeping track of their ships?
I don't know.
Because they're Scandinavian. Scandinavian.
No.
Scandinavian.
How does a pilot like his sandwich?
Got nothing.
Plain.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Where do you go when you get hurt playing peekaboo? I see you.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That was good. That was good. What does a grape say when it gets stepped on?
Ouch.
Nothing. It just lets out a little wine.
Kind of like.
Christian, did you know that 5 out of 4 people struggle with math? Do you know that 5 out of 4 people struggle with math? That's mine.
I don't get it.
I don't.
Sorry. Sorry. Go.
About 5? You're one of those 5. 5?
I just had to wear my dad joke shirt. That's my dad joke shirt.
Should be like 4 out of 5.
Yes, there you go. 5 out of 4. I found 1 out of 5. So.
What kind of car does a egg drive?
I don't know.
A Volkswagen.
Volkswagen. That's good.
Volkswagen.
That's good.
Volkswagen.
That was a shell of a joke. That was good. Did you hear that? I
said shell.
That is witty.
Get him off the mic.
Age-old question.
Yeah.
Shortest man in the Bible.
Wee little man is.
Some people think it was Zacchaeus, but you'd be wrong. Some people think it was Nehemiah. They'd be wrong. There's also some Shuhites in the Bible, but it was actually Peter because he fell asleep on a watch. Nothing?
I don't understand.
Nothing.
Why y'all let him go out like that?
He's small.
Oh.
It's no fun telling
Hey,
me he doesn't get
hold
jokes.
on. No. That was going to be funny, but I'll just leave.
Nate, what did the baby corn say to mama corn? I don't know. Where's popcorn? Not to brag, but I made 6 figures last year. I was also named worst employee at the toy factory.
Yeah.
See, I can keep from laughing if you guys didn't laugh.
6 figure. I think I'm getting tired.
I forgot the one I was supposed to remember.
What is the leading cause of dry skin?
I don't know.
Towels.
You can laugh.
Yes, sir.
I was going to tell a carpentry joke, but I couldn't find one that would work. So.
Did you just now think of that one?
Jay's pulling him right out of left field, baby. Why did the chicken coop
Couldn't find one.
have 2 doors? Because if it had 4, it'd be a chicken sedan.
I heard that one.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
I told your wife to embrace her worst mistakes. She gave you a hug.
Nah, it's good.
All right.
I'll box you. Get that out of here. I'll give you one more.
Once you try a comfort hoodie, you can't go back to regular hoodies. They're slightly weighted, super oversized. It's that perfect fit that makes you feel like you're wrapped in a blanket, but you get to look like you have your life together at the same exact time.
When I die, I want to be cremated.
Oh, no.
It's my only chance at a smoking hot body.
And I've got keys to the crematory. What does a sprinter eat before a race? Nothing. They fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you make a waterbed bouncier? Add some spring water.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Supplies.
Oh. Okay.
All right.
Give me a second. I gotta go deep in the barrel.
Got to go deep.
How do you make tissue paper dance? Put a little boogie in it.
All right, I'm only listening to one more.
Coworkers are like Christmas lights. They hang around together. Half don't work, and the other half, it's not too bright.
Which days of the week are the strongest? Saturdays and Sundays, because the rest of the days are weekdays.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Why couldn't the green pepper practice archery?
Green pepper practice archery.
Because it didn't have an arrow.
Yes, sir. They on
That joke's
fire.
hot, baby.
They on fire right now. They
I'll
on
tell you.
fire. I ain't gonna lie.
I'll tell you what. That's
What kind of birds are always sticking together?
Flock?
Velcros.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you call a T-Rex that's been in a fight?
So excited for himself.
Dinosaur.
Yeah, it's a dinosaur.
Ah!
Dang it.
Two fish are in a tank. One turns to the other and says, "How do you drive this thing?"
Yeah.
You get it? Just give a few minutes. Say it again.
I thought there was a punchline.
Sorry.
Say it again. Say it again. Give me a second.
Two fish are in a tank, and one says to the other, "How do you drive this thing?"
The tank, like army tank.
An army tank.
Yeah, but
Two fish in a tank.
It's not funny, is it? Not.
That
not
is.
funny?
That's hilarious.
Not funny.
yeah, but
His brain.
one's already driving it.
We'll just go to the next one.
I think I get so nervous because I'm actually smart.
Yes, and we are
this
not, and that's the
makes me
problem. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
makes me look so stupid.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I've got an easy one. What kind of music do mummies listen to?
Rap.
Ah! What a baby!
I quit.
What does a baby computer call his father? Data. It's good. It's good.
This one would be good for you, since you like basketball. Why are basketball courts always wet? Because the players are always dribbling. Dribbling?
I like it.
Dribble?
No.
No?
What do you call a pile of hay in church? Christian Bale.
It's good. It's good.
That's pretty good. That's a good
I
one.
like that. I like that. It's good. What's a pirate's favorite country?
Argentina.
Dang it. I get a redo. I get another one. I get another one.
I've never even heard that before. I just. Bing.
What did the cheese say to itself in the mirror? I don't know. Looking Gouda.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
I didn't come up with it.
I like a little. You did. You know, I thought the dryer was shrinking my clothes. Turns out it was the refrigerator all along. Food, refrigerator.
Say it again.
I thought the dryer was shrinking my clothes. Turns out it was the refrigerator all along.
What's in refrigerators? Food.
Consumption.
Oh. Yeah, I get it. I get it now.
My heart's racing. Because I can't.
It's all right.
I get it.
People
now.
in Athens. So stupid.
Another dumb one.
Yeah, it's another
Good.
dumb one. I'm sorry. Did you know people in Athens barely get up before? All right. Redo it. All right. I got to read it. Do you know people in Athens rarely get up for sunrise?
Didn't know that.
Dawn is tough on Greece.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that was good.
Yeah. Dawn is tough on Greece. That's
Today
right.
we are setting up this Chick-fil-A employee for anything she wants.
You could pick any item you want. I'll go get it for you.
Now I gotta keep going because I'm in this game.
Is brown and sticky.
Brown and sticky.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few thoughts.
A stick.
You remember the game, the little song, the little game you played as a kid, Hokey Pokey?
Mm-hmm.
I used to be addicted to Hokey Pokey.
Did you?
But then I turned myself around.
I've got to swallow that one.
I got one out of that. It was possible two, but I got one.
It was a close.
Okay.
I think in wrestling that'd be like a takedown or something. What do you call a fish with no eye?
Fish with no eye.
Fish. 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 No vowel there. Just kind of all consonants. All consonants.
Solid as a poker face.
You have daughters.
I do.
I have a daughter.
Yeah.
They're interesting, aren't they, to raise when they get, teenage, that sort of thing. I'll never forget this one moment. My daughter yelled at me. She said, "Dad, you haven't listened to a single word I've said to you, have you?" So what a strange way to start a conversation.
Right. Yeah.
If that wasn't so true, there's a lot of truth in that one.
Yeah.
That was deep. I was feeling kind of down.
Really?
Yeah.
What was wrong?
My friend, well, it really wasn't the point. My friend just came to cheer me up, and he said, "Man, cheer up. It could be worse. You could literally be stuck underground in a hole full of water."
That would be bad.
I mean, I know he meant well.
Good point.
I invented a new word today.
Mm-hmm.
Plagiarism.
Tell me about that. That was it.
Joke.
That was a joke. That was a joke. Yeah. Pretty good one. Okay. Ham sandwich.
Ham sandwich.
Walks into a bar.
Okay.
And orders a beer. Bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve food here."
You got the insert sound effect there. So, I don't know where you live, people that are watching the episode today, but the thing that excites me is that spring is almost here. I get so excited, I just wet my plants.
Yeah.
I give you that one. What's orange and sounds like a parrot? A carrot. That was a bad one. I've got some bad ones today.
You like to go out to eat, don't you?
Sometimes.
It's nice. Go out, get a nice meal with your wife. Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon?
No.
Great food, but just no atmosphere.
Literally true. That is literally true.
Yeah.
If you see a robbery at an Apple store, does that make you an eyewitness?
Yeah.
Robbery at an Apple store.
Yes,
Make you
sir.
an eyewitness.
Lowercase I.
Little I.
Oh, okay.
Uppercase W.
iTunes.
You need to keep them
iMac.
simpler for me.
iPhone.
I'm a very simple man, John. Very simple man. You put too much complexity into it.
Gotcha.
Like this one, for example. I'm going
Okay.
to keep it in the space mode. I was talking about the restaurant.
As long as we're out
That's
of
right.
space, let's just
I'm
stay
reading
there.
a book right now about anti-gravity. I just can't seem to put it down.
Because if there was gravity, yeah, I see.
Why do you feel like you have to explain the joke every time?
Just piecing it together
I don't
there.
understand that.
Just piecing it together in my mind, just thinking out loud, my friend. So a friend of mine didn't pay his exorcist.
Oh, geez.
I know.
That's
major,
not
man.
good.
He got repossessed. It was crazy. It's crazy.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you. Oh, am I done with you? I'm done with you. Oh, I'm done with you. Oh, yes, sir.
Didn't pay his exorcist.
Oh, jeez.
I know.
That's
major,
not
man.
good.
He got repossessed. It was crazy. It was crazy.
That's very good. I like that one. You know, we 2021 saw the changeover of a presidency.
We did.
Right? Some people are very happy. Some people not so happy. But I was talking to one of the Secret Service guys that actually protected.
You know one of them?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
President Trump.
Is that right?
And you know they had to change some of their protocols in their training because normally if there was like an active shooter or there was a threat, they just yell, "Get down!" But for him, they just yelled, "Donald Duck!"
I like that one.
I think it was the long setup that got me. You pulled me in there. You just reeled me in.
You told me last time that I needed to work on
the setup
presentation.
The setup, yeah.
It's definitely important.
So, you know what? You know, my wife and I sometimes argue about crazy things, right? And sometimes I overreact.
Yeah.
We're having this argument about my own sense of direction. And I just kind of overreacted, man. I just packed up and right.
I don't know why I laughed at that. It's not even really funny.
It was terrible.
That was a dad
terrible.
joke. You're right. Anna says that was a dad joke. That classifies.
Anna is right.
I think we made the determination that if you tell a joke and you kind of giggle and you just kind of shake your head, that means it's officially a dad joke.
Yeah, exactly. That is a definition of a dad joke.
Okay.
Yeah, outside of the context of this,
Yeah.
if you roll your eyes and shake your head and go, and your opinion of the other person just lowered, like, that's a dad joke.
Why did the Invisible Man turn down the job offer? He just couldn't see himself doing it.
Oh!
My answer to that was, it just wasn't apparent. I don't know, it just wasn't apparent.
He just couldn't see himself doing it.
Equally bad. Okay. Do you know that Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, governor of California, former, yeah, Newsom's right.
They wish, probably.
Yeah, probably. He just signed up to do a new movie, like he came out of retirement.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to be about classical music, okay? And he'll be Bach. He'll be Bach is who's going to be playing is Bach. He'll be Bach. That was terrible. I went with a longer setup there to try to reel you in, but it's just backfired.
You ever send your wife like romantic text messages occasionally, just throughout the day?
Every
love you,
day,
sweetie. Just little
every
things like
single
that.
day, I do that. I do.
Well, the other day, Sherry sent me some really sweet texts, but I got a little confused, and just share this with you. First of all, she wrote, "If you're sleeping, send me your dreams." Isn't that sweet? A couple minutes later, she said, "If you're laughing, send me your smile." It's really,
That is nice.
it's really,
Yeah.
If you're eating, send me a bite. If you're drinking, send me a sip.
Sounds like a poem almost.
It was they were kind of spread out.
Okay.
And she said, "If you're crying, send me your tears. I love you." And that was kind of the string. Well, I texted back, "I'm on the toilet. Please advise."
Another long setup.
Yeah.
And you reeled me in.
That was beautiful.
What do you call somebody with no body and no nose? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. That's what you call them.
All right, we're going to slip into our bonus questions.
Okay.
You got 3?
I got lost, but
you
probably.
Good with bonus questions?
Probably.
Okay. Ooh, we got one from the crowd.
From the crowd.
The crowd got submitted. That's not fair. Come on, guys. Where's mine? All right. What's Iron Man without a suit? Stark naked. Do you follow Iron Man?
Yes. Tony
Stark.
Stark, yeah.
thought
That
I
was
could
a
get you on
stretch.
that one.
That was a stretch.
I got a friend out there. I guarantee you, Ira Williams laughed at that one.
Oh.
He's an Avenger guy.
Yeah.
He's an Avenger guy.
So, I phoned a friend, Jeff Porter, for this next one.
Okay. Do you need him to deliver it? You want to tag out?
Do you want to?
Why don't you tag out?
Jeff Porter, you
tag
wanna
out.
hop
Get him in here.
Get in here, Jeff
Porter
Porter.
in here.
Get in here. Get in here.
Bring it
Jeff
on,
Porter,
JP.
everybody.
JP, bring it on.
Get him. Get him.
CEO handbid.
And dad joke novice.
Dad joke novice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're going to help John out here with this one.
He needs it. Because I kicked his tail, I think. Seth, did I kick his tail?
Oh, I think he got
maybe.
you.
I think so. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. How does Moses make his coffee?
How does Moses make his coffee? I was thinking something to do with Exodus. How does Moses make his coffee?
He brews it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, tag him back out.
I'll give you a point. I'll give you a point on that.
Jeff Porter. He brews it. Hebrews.
You know, I know I got it, John. You don't have to explain it to me. Our audience is much more sophisticated than that. Okay, I ordered a chicken and egg from Amazon recently.
Chicken and egg?
Chicken
They
and an
sell
egg.
it? They sell that? Is that right?
I ordered them separately. I'll let you know what happens.
That's great. The age-old question, which comes
Amazon
first?
will solve it for us.
Okay. How do you steal a coat?
How do you steal a coat? One arm at a time.
You just jack it. You just jack it.
That's good. I like that.
That's a good one.
Here's my last one. You like music?
I do like music.
You like all kinds of music. as a
All
matter of fact.
kinds.
I mean, if I were to check out your playlist,
all over the place.
it would be all over the board, right? Have you heard about the new band called Plastic?
No, I have not.
They mostly rap.
That's great.
That's the last one.
I am okay. So
we need
listen,
to
I'm
bring this
conceding.
episode to
I'm
its
conceding the victory to you
merciful
today.
end. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. This better be
But,
good because
no,
we're
it's-
closing on it.
You know, I know a lot of people that like hippies and you know.
You have a very diverse group of
I
friends.
do.
Yes, you
right?
do. You do.
What do you call a hippie's wife? Mrs. Hippie.
Yeah,
Oh boy, I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry that you took. I would say probably
20
about
minutes
20 minutes out of your day to listen to this. Hey.
H&R Block makes filing your taxes really convenient. File in person at your local office, virtually from the comfort of your home, or just drop off your...
This video might just be an atheist's worst nightmare. Scientists have uncovered what seems like the mind of God, and the evidence presented is almost undeniable. You're about to witness how the invisible intertwines with the visible. The concept of as above, so below will gain profound clarity after watching this. All I ask is for your patience and to stay with us until the end, as everything will gradually come together and make complete sense. However, I must warn you, this video may transform you into a believer in God, so if you're not open to changing your beliefs, you might want to stop watching now. Just kidding. Let's get started.
What if there were a code embedded in numbers? Numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. What if there was a secret code embedded in them that we finally got around to discovering? What would that imply? What if there was a message inside numbers? What would that imply? It would tell us something about the intelligence of the person who made numbers. And as a matter of fact, there is a secret code built into numbers that was discovered in the 1980s. It's been there since creation, but it wasn't until the 1980s we got smart enough to finally decipher it. And it is mind-blowing. There is no secular or atheistic explanation for what I'm going to share with you.
First, before we dive into the secret code that Dr. Jason Lisle speaks of, it's essential to comprehend how mathematics led us to this discovery. I'll aim to keep this brief to ensure we all stay on the same page, but bear with me. This journey through mathematics could profoundly change your understanding and might even make you believe in God, especially for those still in doubt. So, please bear with me. In this journey of understanding, let's dive into the Mandelbrot set, a discovery that not only changed how we see mathematics, but also offers a glimpse into the profound complexity of the universe. In the late 1970s, Benoit Mandelbrot, a mathematician with a vision, stumbled upon something remarkable. He wasn't just crunching numbers. He was exploring how simple mathematical rules could unfold into complex, stunning patterns. His work led to the discovery of the Mandelbrot set, a unique set of numbers that revealed a hidden order within what seemed like chaos. To appreciate the Mandelbrot set, think about how numbers can belong to certain groups based on rules, like being even or odd. The Mandelbrot set is a group too, but it's special because it involves complex numbers. These aren't your everyday numbers. They're made up of two parts, one real and one imaginary, like a blend of the tangible and the fantastical. The Mandelbrot set is defined using a special number, c, and a process that involves another number, z or z, which starts at 0. The formula used is zn plus 1 is equal to zn to the power of 2 plus c. This means you take your current value of z, zn, square it, add c, and this becomes your new z, zn plus 1. The key question is whether z remains small or becomes very large. If z stays within certain limits and doesn't increase indefinitely, then c is a part of the Mandelbrot set. If z keeps growing bigger and bigger, then c is not a part of the set. For example, if we choose c as 1, the formula becomes zn plus 1 is equal to zn to the power of 2 plus 1. Starting from z is equal to 0, we see that z rapidly increases in size, indicating that 1 is not a part of the Mandelbrot set. However, if we choose c,
Skirt. I was playing the game.
can make you believe in God, especially for those still in doubt. So, please bear with me. In this journey of understanding, let's dive into the Mandelbrot set, a discovery that not only changed how we see mathematics, but also offers a glimpse into the profound complexity of the universe. In the late 1970s, Benoit Mandelbrot, a mathematician with a vision, stumbled upon something remarkable. He wasn't just crunching numbers. He was exploring how simple mathematical rules could unfold into complex, stunning patterns. His work led to the discovery of the Mandelbrot set, a unique set of numbers that revealed a hidden order within what seemed like chaos. To appreciate the Mandelbrot set, think about how numbers can belong to certain groups based on rules, like being even or odd. The Mandelbrot set is a group too, but it's special because it involves complex numbers. These aren't your everyday numbers. They're made up of two parts, one real and one imaginary, like a blend of the tangible and the fantastical. The Mandelbrot set is defined using a special number, c, and a process that involves another number, z or z, which starts at 0. The formula used is zn plus 1 is equal to zn to the power of 2 plus c. This means you take your current value of z, zn, square it, add c, and this becomes your new z, zn plus 1. The key question is whether z remains small or becomes very large. If z stays within certain limits and doesn't increase indefinitely, then c is a part of the Mandelbrot set. If z keeps growing bigger and bigger, then c is not a part of the set. For example, if we choose c as 1, the formula becomes zn plus 1 is equal to zn to the power of 2 plus 1. Starting from z is equal to 0, we see that z rapidly increases in size, indicating that 1 is not a part of the Mandelbrot set. However, if we choose c as -1, we find a pattern where z fluctuates but remains small, indicating that -1 is a part of the Mandelbrot set. The Mandelbrot set includes not only real numbers, but also complex and imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers results in a negative number when squared, symbolized by I. We plot these numbers on a plane, with the x-axis representing the real part and the y-axis the imaginary part. I've kept this explanation as brief as possible, but now let's turn our attention back to Dr. Jason Lisle, who will guide us further into the pattern of this formula. It's an exploration of intelligence itself.
And so what we can do is we can have the computer check all these different points, and we'll see if there's a pattern to the Mandelbrot set. And so we'll take the points that belong to the Mandelbrot set, and we'll color those black. That's arbitrary. That's the way Benoit Mandelbrot did it, and we follow his example. So And you have the computer check more points, and you find that all those points right there belong to the Mandelbrot set. When you run it through that formula, Z stays small. And then the points that do not belong, we'll color those red, or some other color, it doesn't really matter. And so we already checked the point 1. We found that the number 1 does not belong to the Mandelbrot set, so it gets colored red. And had we checked these other points, we would find that they do not belong. And so you see, as you plot more and more of these points, a pattern starts to emerge. What's it going to look like? Well, you have the computer run through thousands and thousands of points. You have the computer check each one of those numbers, and a pattern emerges, and the pattern looks like this. It's really interesting and unexpected. Nobody was expecting that when you made a map of the Mandelbrot set, it would look like that.
Awesome, right? This is just the beginning. In a minute, it will all start making sense, and if you stay with me till the end, I promise you, you'll begin to see God in everything. So, let's move forward and let Dr. Jason Lyle show us just how deep this pattern can go. You're going to be amazed.
The main shape that looks kind of like a heart, that's called a cardioid. And a cardioid is what happens when you take a circle and you take your pencil on it and roll it around another circle of equal size. The shape you'll get is a cardioid. And then on the left side over there, you got this kind of spike that goes out. And you see there's this little bump on the end of the spike. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So we'll zoom in on it. And that little bump, turns out,
There's another one.
it looks like the entire Mandelbrot set. It's a mini Mandelbrot set. And it's almost identical to the parent, except it's got extra spikes growing off of it. But the basic shape's the same. It's got the cardioid and the circles. And, oh, it has a little spike growing off of it, too, with a little bump. What could that be? Well, let's zoom in on that.
It's the same thing.
Oh, interesting. Absolutely fat. And it's got extra spikes growing off of it. And that's got a little bud. How about that? Now, of course, you could do that literally forever. And there's an infinite number of baby versions built into the Mandelbrot set on smaller and smaller scales. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And take a look at how small this is compared to the original when we zoom back out here. Look at how tiny it is. Isn't that remarkable? Who would have expected that little formula, z squared plus c, when you run numbers through it and you find out which ones belong, you get that.
A pattern that keeps repeating itself in smaller and smaller forms is known as a fractal. The Mandelbrot set is a famous example of such a fractal, but it's not the only one. Within the Mandelbrot set itself, there are numerous fractal patterns. Imagine zooming into one of the set's delicate tendril-like features. You might expect that eventually, the pattern will simplify or stop, but it doesn't. It keeps winding and curving, infinitely intricate. This endless complexity can be quite mesmerizing to observe, offering a glimpse into what seems like an infinite process. The Mandelbrot set provides a window into understanding infinity, hinting at the vastness of God's mind. Unlike us, who can only process a limited amount of information at a time, the concept of the Mandelbrot set suggests a mind that is truly infinite, capable of infinite complexity and thought. This dive into the Mandelbrot set's fractals is more than just a visual experience. It's a journey through a universe of mathematical wonder, a glimpse into the mind of God. The deeper we go, the more the fractals reveal, unfolding like layers of an endless puzzle. Each zoom brings us closer to the heart of mathematical infinity, showcasing the breathtaking beauty and boundless creativity inherent in God's design. This exploration is not just about observing patterns, it's about witnessing the dance of mathematics as a reflection of the mind of God.
All that, just a map of what numbers belong to that little formula when you run them through that algorithm. Isn't that fascinating? So then it occurred to me, well, is there something special about that formula? I mean, did we just happen to stumble upon to to an amazing formula? What happens if we change it? What happens if we go z cubed plus c? Well, I ran the computer code through that, and it turns out you get a different shape. And very similar in some respects, but different in others. The shape here, the main shape, is called a nephroid. A nephroid is what happens when you take a circle half the size of another and you roll it around. Then you get that shape. And you can see it's a perfect nephroid. Really amazing. You can also plot the intermediate powers if you want to. You know, what z to the 2.1, z to the 2.2, and so on. And when you do that, you can see how the shape gradually changes from one end to the other, which is kind of interesting. And so you can kind of compare the two shapes.
Here's the one thing I trust AI to do more than humans. And ironically, it's brand safety. You spend so much time building up your brand, and the wrong collaboration can...
What does the beauty and complexity in fractals signify? Fractals are undeniably beautiful and intricate. But what is the source of this beauty? An intriguing aspect of fractals is that their complexity increases as you zoom in, rather than decreasing, presenting ever smaller versions of the whole. Is the beauty of fractals due to the color schemes chosen by humans? While the colors, which are arbitrary except for black, typically assigned to the fractal itself, do enhance their appearance, even in grayscale, fractals maintain their appeal. The beauty lies not in the colors, but in the shapes themselves. Colors might enhance the fractals like salt enhances food flavor, but they don't create the beauty. The inherent shapes in fractals, independent of human choice, hold a natural attraction. Did computers create this beauty? While computers have made it easier to plot and visualize fractals, they are not the creators of this beauty. The first points of fractals can be plotted manually, although it's a tedious process. Computers have simply made it quicker to reveal what has always been there. The beauty existed before technology made it visible. Did Benoit Mandelbrot, the individual who formulated the mathematical equation for the Mandelbrot set, create its beauty and complexity? Not quite. He, like everyone else, was surprised by the intricate patterns that emerged. The discovery of the Mandelbrot set contradicted the initial assumption that it might be a computational artifact. It was a real mathematical discovery, not a human invention. Humans are capable of uncovering complex patterns, but creating something infinitely complex is beyond human capacity. The beauty in fractals is inherent in mathematics. It's an element that has always been present, but it was only with the technological advancements of the 1980s that humans could fully appreciate it. Mathematics is the study of relationships between numbers and the rules governing how they interact. Numbers themselves are abstract concepts representing quantity. For instance, the number 3 doesn't exist physically, it's a concept representing a quantity, separate from any physical objects it might be counting. Numbers are abstract and exist in the mind, not in the physical world. You can't touch or see a number in a literal sense. For example, the numeral 3 is just a symbol representing the concept of 3, not the number itself. If you erase it, you haven't destroyed the number 3, you've simply removed the representation of it. Numerals are to numbers what words are to ideas, representations, not the things themselves. So where do the laws of mathematics come from? This question leads back to the origins of these concepts. Secular explanations like evolution don't apply to mathematical laws. Numbers and mathematical truths are constant, they don't evolve. The idea that humans created these laws is also implausible because if that were true, we could arbitrarily decide that 2 + 2 = 5. However, such a notion conflicts with reality. Mathematical laws were discovered, not created. For instance, the Pythagorean theorem was true long before Pythagoras discovered it. Similarly, the planets obeyed mathematical laws in their orbits before humans observed and named those laws. Now, this is the moment when everything will start making sense and everything will come together. What you're about to hear might just change your perspective forever, and the images that follow are set to show you God in everything.
Laws of mathematics are the way God thinks about numbers. And that makes sense of the laws of math and their properties, because laws of math are conceptual, they exist in a mind, they are universal, meaning they apply everywhere, they're invariant, meaning they don't change with time, and they're exceptionless. It's not like 2 + 2 = 4 most of the time, but every now and then it equals 7. They're exceptionless, right? And if you think about it, all those characteristics make sense in the Christian worldview, where mathematics is a reflection of the way God thinks about numbers. Laws of mathematics would have to be conceptual because God's thoughts are conceptual. That makes sense. Laws of mathematics are universal. They apply everywhere because God is omnipresent. Right? Laws of mathematics are invariant because God doesn't change with time. God's beyond time and made time. Laws of mathematics are exceptionless because God is sovereign. There's no aspect of creation that is out of his control.
Yes, sir. Gotcha.
But if you think about it, none of those properties of laws of mathematics would make sense in a secular or naturalistic worldview. Or how could you even know? I mean, somebody might suppose, well, I think laws of math are universal, but how could you possibly know that? Everybody assumes it. I guarantee you, all astronomers, at least all the ones I've ever met in my career, all believe that mathematics works the same way in the Andromeda Galaxy as it works here on Earth. And you couldn't know anything about Andromeda Galaxy if you didn't assume that. You assume the laws of physics are the same there. You assume the laws of mathematics are the same there. How do they know that? Have they been there? Of course not. It's in the Christian worldview that we would say, hey, God's sovereign over the entire universe. He's omnipresent. Of course they're going to work the same way there as they work here. All mathematicians assume that laws of mathematics are the same tomorrow as they were yesterday. That makes sense in the Christian worldview, and yet it makes no sense in a secular worldview why there should even be laws of mathematics, let alone why they do not change with time. Or how could you possibly know that? How can you know anything about a future you've never experienced from a secular worldview? They'll try and turn it back. Well, how do you know the future? Because I know God, and God is beyond time. And He's told me some things about the future. So you see, all of the characteristics of laws of mathematics make sense in light of the fact that mathematics stems from the mind of God. The naturalist has a dilemma, however, because laws of mathematics are conceptual. They exist in the mind. We know that. Something's a concept that exists in the mind. And so 2 + 2 = 4, that's a concept. And there are other mathematical truths you could think of. They exist in the mind. But they also existed before people, right? Because again, the planets orbited before people and they obeyed mathematical laws. It's not like the planets were just chaotic before human beings, right? Came around and created math. So that you see, the naturalist has a dilemma, because on the one hand, he knows that mathematics requires a mind, but on the other hand, he knows that mathematics exists before human minds. But the naturalist doesn't have minds before human minds, you see. I mean, animals they can't really do math. So he's got a problem. But the Christian can make sense of this, because we have a mind before human minds, and that is the mind of God.
Yes.
And the mind of God not only makes sense of laws of mathematics, but their properties as well. Their universal, invariant nature.
Now, let's take a look at those images I mentioned earlier. Here, you can witness how the invisible becomes visible. This is where the concept of as above, so below truly comes into play. This is the mind of God.
So perfect fractals repeat infinitely and are only found in the conceptual world of mathematics. Nonetheless, the physical world contains proximate fractals, things that they go so many steps and then eventually they break down into atoms, and atoms are not fractal. So here's my question then. Why do fractals occur both in math, which exists in the mind, it's conceptual, and in the physical world, which is made up of atoms and does not exist in your mind? Right? I mean, you have this shape, that's a multibrot. That exists only in the conceptual world of mathematics. We can plot it, but you could never touch that thing because it's not physical. It's not made up of atoms. But that one is, and they look remarkably similar. This particular shape here is part of the Mandelbrot set. Looks like a bolt of lightning, but it's not made of atoms. This one is. How is it that conceptual things that exist only in the mind also occur in the physical universe? This particular shape, that might look like a plant. That's actually a mathematical graph called a Barnsley fern. And a Barnsley fern is such that each leaflet is the entire shape.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, 100.
Let me show you. Isn't that interesting? Let's do it again just because it's cool. See, the entire shape, each leaflet is the entire shape. Fascinating. You can't touch that though. It doesn't exist in the physical world, but that does. It's very similar. This stuff right here, that's a mathematical graph. That doesn't exist in the physical world, but that grows on your windows. This particular mathematical shape, cones on cones, it does not exist in the physical world, whereas this, unfortunately, does. This particular shape, that's part of the Mandelbrot set. It's a double spiral. You can't see that in a telescope because it's not made of atoms. It doesn't exist physically in the universe, but that one you can see it in a small telescope. The Whirlpool Galaxy, not too far off from the Big Dipper. So how is it that math, which is conceptual, you find these shapes, and then in nature, which is physical, you find the same kinds of shapes? Why is that? Now, one answer to this, and a skeptic might say this, is, well, the physical universe obeys mathematical laws. So it stands to reason if something can occur in math, it can occur in the physical world because the physical world obeys math. Okay, I'll grant that. But then I'm going to have to ask, why does the physical universe obey mathematical laws? And that is a stumper. if you're not a Christian. If you're not a Christian. In the Christian worldview, I can make sense of why the physical universe obeys math. Because the physical universe is upheld by the mind of God, and God thinks mathematically. So it stands to reason the physical universe will obey mathematical laws, because God upholds all things by the word of his power, the Bible says, and in him all things consist or hold together. God thinks mathematically, and therefore the way he upholds the universe will be mathematical. It's inevitable.
So, at the end of his presentation, Dr. Jason Lisle discusses a fundamental question. Why does our physical universe follow the rules of mathematics, a concept that exists in the mind? This question challenges the secular worldview, which struggles to explain why mathematics, being abstract and conceptual, applies so perfectly to the physical, tangible world. Dr. Eugene Wigner, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, delves into this puzzle in his article, The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences. He finds it perplexing and almost miraculous that our universe conforms so neatly to mathematical laws and that humans have the ability to uncover these laws. From a secular perspective, there's no clear answer as to why the universe adheres to these mathematical rules. In contrast, the Christian worldview offers a different explanation. It suggests that the beauty and complexity inherent in numbers, abstract concepts of quantity, reflect God's thinking. These numbers existed before humans, implying that a conscious mind was present before humanity. This aligns with the Christian belief in an omnipresent, unchanging God, the source of all abstract thought. The physical world, including its approximate fractals and the universe's obedience to mathematical laws, are seen as being controlled by God's mind. This perspective believes that human capacity for science and understanding the intricate patterns of creation comes from God sharing some of his thoughts with us. This divine revelation is most explicitly communicated in God's word and is also reflected in the moral laws written in human hearts. In conclusion, I want to express gratitude to Dr. Jason Lisle for bringing our attention to the profound connection between the universe's adherence to mathematical laws and the existence of a higher power. His insights encourage us to ponder deeply about the world we live in and the principles that govern it. By illustrating how mathematics, an abstract and conceptual realm, aligns so seamlessly with the physical universe, Dr. Lisle opens a window to a perspective where science and faith intersect. This presentation may serve as a bridge for many, offering a mathematical approach to understanding the divine. It suggests a universe where God is omnipresent, omniscient, and intricately involved in the fabric of creation. The harmony between abstract mathematical concepts and the physical world could be seen as evidence of a grand design, a thoughtful orchestration that transcends mere coincidence. It's a perspective that doesn't just appeal to emotion or belief, but also engages the intellect and invites contemplation. I hope this video has brought you closer to a sense of awe and possibly closer to God, presenting a unique viewpoint where...
With this one.
If your HVAC unit is at least 5 years old and you own your own home, you...
Is this reality? Well, we're experiencing something right now, so maybe the better question is, what is reality? Could everything we see, everything we experience, everything that exists in our entire universe be artificial? Supporters of simulation theory believe that not only is it possible that we're living in a simulation, it's likely. And the more we look for evidence, the more we find. Let's find out why. The idea of the universe being a simulation is not a new one. Theories exist in ancient cultures around the world. Modern simulation theory comes from Nick Bostrom, a philosopher at Oxford who wrote an influential paper on the subject in 2003. Assuming that living in a simulation is possible, Bostrom presents the simulation trilemma, which says one of the following must be true. 1, we destroy ourselves before we're able to create a simulation. 2, we're able to create a simulation but choose not to. Or 3, we are definitely in a simulation. Bostrom believes each of these is equally likely to be true. Now, I don't think that's controversial. We use computer models to study the human population, predict the weather, for entertainment. We simulate everything. And when a civilization can create a realistic simulation, the most obvious one to create is that of its own early existence. Bostrom calls this an ancestral simulation, and a civilization that can do this wouldn't just create one simulation, it would create many. And those simulated civilizations might create their own simulations of the universe, and on like Russian nesting dolls of reality.
Now you're a character in that world and you think you have free will and you say, I want to invent a computer, so you do. Hey, I want to create a world in my computer. And then that world creates a world in its computer. And then you have simulations all the way down.
When Elon Musk was asked what he thought the chances were that our reality is the original base reality,
the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is a little more conservative. He thinks the odds that we are in base reality versus a simulated reality is 50-50. A 50-50 chance that everything we experience is artificial, that's still pretty high. And even though we mostly hear what scientists think about this, it's not scientific theory. Simulation theory isn't math, it's philosophy. It isn't physics, it's metaphysics. So what we need is hard evidence that we live in a simulation. And to find proof, all you have to do is look. Let's start at the beginning. There was no space or time. The contents of the entire universe were concentrated to the size of a tennis ball and had a temperature of a quadrillion degrees. Then suddenly, the Big Bang. Everything explodes outward faster than the speed of light. Then about 14 billion years later, we've got galaxies and planets and ice cream and K-pop.
Yeah, I could do without the K-pop.
Me too. Okay, if before the Big Bang there was no space and no time, what was there? What about the beginning of the universe from the religious point of view? God created everything. Fine. Where was he before? What caused the Big Bang to happen in the first place? Or what made God decide to snap his fingers or wiggle his nose or whatever he did to make everything happen? If you ask a physicist to explain what existed before the universe, they'll give you an answer about quantum foam, dark energy, or something just as bonkers as the Big Bang. Ask a theologian what existed before God created the universe, and you'll get an answer equally as confusing. But what does make sense is that the universe was just sitting there dormant. Then someone somewhere decided to boot up a program. And in that program, our program, are all the laws of the universe. Electromagnetism and gravitational force are written into the program. The speed of light gets a value. There's code for Planck's constants of mass, speed, and time. Avogadro's number is in there, along with a bunch of other rules that govern the behavior of everything that exists. All part of our program. Even consciousness itself is part of our simulation. If you've never heard of simulation theory, then this might sound far-fetched. But some of the world's most respected scientists, technologists, and philosophers believe that it is more likely than not that we are living in an artificial reality. So, how do we prove it?
Oh no, we're embarrassed. We screwed up. Our warehouse is overloaded with survival food kits, but our mess...
If we live in an artificial reality, it would make sense for there to be occasional glitches. Philip K. Dick is one of the most influential science fiction writers of all time. Movies based on his books include Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, The Adjustment Bureau, and plenty of others. He believed there are many universes, and sometimes those other realities bleed into ours. He claimed to have visions of this, and even wrote stories like The Man in the High Castle based on these visions.
That in fact plural realities did exist superimposed onto one another like so many film transparencies.
One way other realities blend into ours could be the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is when a large number of people have memories of events that don't match reality. This is called the Mandela effect because millions of people specifically remember Nelson Mandela died in prison. He didn't. People remember his wife walking beside his casket in a funeral procession that was on television for 2 hours that day. This never happened. Or the Berenstain Bears, which people insist were always called the Berenstein Bears. People remember the tycoon from Monopoly having a monocle that he never had. What was Darth Vader famous for saying?
Luke, I am your father.
Nope, he never said that.
What?
What about Stouffer's stovetop stuffing?
Best part of Thanksgiving.
No, it isn't, because there's no such product. Stovetop is made by Kraft.
No.
The evil queen from Snow White who looked into her mirror and said,
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Nope.
magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
My reality is shattered.
People remember Febreze being spelled with 2 E's. People remember Jiffy peanut butter, but there's no such thing. And there are a lot more. A lot more. Personally, I don't have most of these false memories, but there are a few that get me. The Flintstones. There are 2 T's in the Flintstones. I remember just one. And what about the Fruit of the Loom logo? I could swear it looks like this. But it doesn't. This is the actual logo. No cornucopia.
Cornu what now?
Basket.
Then just say basket for crying out loud.
And at the end of Moonraker, a terrible but excellent James Bond movie, I remember Jaws' girlfriend as having braces. I mean, I specifically remember it. She didn't have braces. I just can't get my brain to accept it. That's the Mandela effect. So why do millions of people distinctly remember different things?
Glitch in a simulation?
Yep. Philip K. Dick also felt when we experienced deja vu, it's because something in our simulated universe changed and a new timeline branched off of the current one.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed.
Ever feel like you've lived a moment before? That's because, according to Philip K. Dick and others, you have. Deja vu is the simulation correcting itself with new information. But skeptics can easily dismiss these theories. The human mind is terribly unreliable. They don't accept this as evidence. But we're not done yet. We live in a huge universe, 200 billion trillion stars. And even if life is rare, you'd think there'd be some evidence of it somewhere. This is Fermi's paradox. But according to the Drake equation, there should be over 1 million technologically advanced civilizations just in our galaxy. And on average, the nearest one should be just a few hundred light years away. But there's nothing, at least not that we can see. So where is everybody? Are we really alone in the universe, or does our program only focus on us? And what about the physical rules that are in place? Max Tegmark, a cosmologist at MIT, said the strict laws of physics point to the possibility of a simulation. Putting a cap on the speed of light sure is a good way to keep your Sims from venturing out too far from home. Theoretical physicist James Gates thought simulation theory was crazy. Then he started studying quarks and electrons. He found error-correcting code buried deep inside the equations used to describe string theory.
So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos?
Into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
Dr. Gates has changed his mind about simulation theory. In 2017, a group of scientists at the University of Washington proved they can embed computer code into strands of DNA. Everything in nature is math. Look at the Fibonacci sequence. You get the Fibonacci sequence by adding 2 previous numbers in the sequence together. So 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 1 = 3, 3 + 2 = 5, 5 + 3 = 8, and so on forever. You get the golden ratio, also called phi, by dividing 2 consecutive Fibonacci numbers. So the number 89 is a Fibonacci number. The next number in the sequence after 89 is 144. 144 divided by 89 is the golden ratio. It's about 1.618. We see Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio everywhere. The number of petals on a flower is usually a Fibonacci number. Lilies have 3 petals, buttercups have 5, chicory has 21, and a daisy has 34. And the spacing of each petal is arranged in a circle according to the golden ratio. As trees grow, the number of branches they form is a Fibonacci number. And not just plants, animals too. The ratio of female to male honeybees in a colony is the golden ratio, 1.618. The human body conforms to the golden ratio too. Most of the body follows the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5. 1 nose, 2 eyes, 3 limb segments, 5 fingers, 5 toes. The proportions of the body, like the length of your shoulder to your elbow, and from your elbow to your fingertips, that's the golden ratio. Even a DNA molecule measures 34 angstroms long by 21 angstroms wide. Fibonacci numbers, and the golden ratio. From the spiral of seashells to the spiral of a galaxy and everything in between, Fibonacci numbers are everywhere. Now, some claim this is a coincidence. that humans look for patterns in chaos because that's what we're programmed to do.
What we're programmed to do.
And isn't that interesting? By trying to debunk simulation theory, they actually end up proving it. No matter what we study, whether it's something the size of a galaxy or as small as an electron, everything in the universe seems to follow patterns and rules. In other words, a program. To simulate an entire universe, you'd obviously need more advanced technology than we have. But that doesn't mean we won't get there. Moore's law says that computing power doubles every 18 months, and this has held true for about 50 years. Now that is slowing down a little bit, but only because of physical limitations. Assuming we can learn to make microchips smaller, and there's no doubt that we will, it's predicted that artificial intelligence could surpass human intelligence within the next 100 years. As Elon Musk points out, when he was a kid, the world's most advanced video game was Pong, 2 rectangles on a screen. 40 years later, video game technology is barely distinguishable from reality. He said that 6 years ago. And even in that short time, video game engines have become even more realistic. Look at this footage from Unreal Engine 5.
When a world we can build feels as real as our own.
What just happened?
Imagine what games are going to look like in the next 6 years, or the next 60, or the next 6,000. But simulating an entire universe, how big of a computer will we need? Well, it's estimated that there are 10 to the power of 80 atoms in the universe. Let me put that on the screen just for fun. Okay, that's a lot. If each particle needs 128 bits to calculate its position and momentum, you're at 10 to the power of 83 bits. And that's just for data storage. We also need computing power to track what each of those particles is doing. If we say 2 floating point operations per second, or 2 flops per particle, we're at 2 times 10 to the 80th power flops. There aren't even words for these numbers. And this is the computing power for just the stuff in the universe. What about human intelligence? The human brain can perform 100 trillion calculations per second, or 100 teraflops. Multiplied by billions of people, the numbers are ridiculous. To power all of this, the simulation would need access to multiple Dyson spheres, the megastructures that capture 100% of the energy of a star. Or the simulation would have to harness the energy from black holes. This is why famous physicists like Dr. Michio Kaku are not on board with simulation theory. He claims that simulating a universe is not scientifically possible. The only computer capable of simulating a universe is the universe itself. Now, at first glance, this makes sense. But with all due respect to Dr. Kaku, that's not how simulations work. When you're playing a 3D video game, the entire game world isn't rendered. Instead, the game engine only calculates what the player can see and interact with at that specific moment. If we are living in a simulation, then it would make sense that the creators of the simulation would use a similar technique. And wouldn't it be interesting if there was evidence that this is exactly what happens?
Well, wait a minute. Do we have proof? Sweet, fancy Moses!
If you're sitting around Googling how to make money on the internet and your ass is tired of being broke, let me tell you what your parents never told you. You can make money online, but you gotta quit taking advice from broke people.
And the crazy part is, I didn't create this system. Carla taught me this. Carla, why don't you tell them more about it?
I'm going to show you a way to potentially make money by pairing Amazon with the power of AI.
Supporters of simulation theory often point to video games as a way to explain, if not prove, that our reality is artificial. In a video game, the only data that is rendered is what the player sees or interacts with. If you're playing a video game and there's a car or building a mile away, that entire object isn't rendered. The game engine only renders the bare minimum of information to make the object look real. A distant building is rendered as just a few pixels, not that complicated. As you get closer, the engine renders more details, but still, it's just a facade. The engine doesn't bother calculating what's inside the building until you actually go in. The game engine always knows how much data to send you and doesn't bother with anything else. If we live in a simulation, it would make sense that our reality is rendered the same way. And we could test this.
Wait, well, what do you mean we can test this?
Specifically, we can use the double slit experiment. Here's how it goes. If we fire particles in a straight line at a screen, after passing through a single slit, we would expect to see this clumping pattern on the screen. If we try this with a wave, we expect to see a pattern like this. where particles are most dense in the middle of the screen but radiate outward, similar to the clumping pattern. When we add a second slit, it starts to get fun. When the waves pass through the double slit, each slit creates its own wave. When those waves intersect, they cancel each other out. That creates a pattern like this. It's called an interference pattern. So, particles passing through two slits create clumping patterns. Waves through two slits creates an interference pattern. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Good. If we fire electrons through the slit, we see the clumping pattern as expected. An electron has mass, so it's a tiny bit of matter. So if we fire electrons through two slits, we should see two clumps. But we don't. We see the wave interference pattern. This shouldn't be happening. What's going on here? For years, scientists assumed that the electrons were colliding with each other, causing the wave pattern. But in the 60s, the experiment was modified so that only one electron at a time was fired through the slits. There was no way the electrons could interact with each other. Yet we still see an interference pattern. Scientists wanted to see what was causing this, so they added a detector to observe electrons as they pass through the slits. That's when things go from weird to paranormal. As soon as the detectors were installed, the interference pattern went away and the clumping pattern returned. Take the detectors away and the wave interference pattern is back.
But that's a different result to what we had earlier. So here's the last bit of sneakiness that we can play with atoms. Surely now, we're going to get to grips with it. Leave the detector there, but just very quietly go and unplug it. Don't let the atoms know that you're not spying on them. Run the experiment again. Now, if you can explain this using common sense and logic, do let me know, because there's a Nobel Prize for you.
It's as if the particles are aware they're being observed. Then physicist John Wheeler had an idea. He called it the delayed choice experiment. How it works is, photons are projected through the double slit, but the detector is not activated until after they pass through the slit, but before they impact the screen. Photons were emitted as waves, passed through the slits as waves, but when the waves were observed before hitting the screen, they suddenly behaved like particles again. Still don't think there's an intelligence at work? Well, what Wheeler's experiment showed is that even though the electrons started as waves but behaved like particles after being observed, at the moment the decision to observe them was made, the electrons recorded themselves as having passed through the slits as particles. The electrons changed their state by going back in time.
I personally find that I gravitate more towards the information theoretic point of view and believing that the universe that I exist in is a very good, high-quality simulation.
Now, this experiment is happening on a table in a lab, a very short distance. So what happens when we observe light coming from vast distances, like say a galaxy 100 million light years away? If light from a distant galaxy is projected through the double slit, it creates the wave interference pattern. But if we push those photons through a measuring apparatus to observe them, the wave again collapses all the way back to its source. This is called retrocausality. Simply by choosing to observe the photons this way, they reach back through time 100 million years and alter their state on the other side of the galaxy. But like a video game engine, it only does this if we're looking. Even though our universe is full of galaxies, those galaxies may not actually be there. If we're living in a simulation, then stars and galaxies could simply be projections, and only when we get up close would those projections become more detailed. This is an excellent way to save computational resources. And because we're stuck with the hard limit of the speed of light, getting to far-off places is really difficult. Limiting the speed of light is a useful rule to have in place. Quantum mechanics like the double slit experiment and quantum entanglement only make sense if there's a program at work, because only the program can ignore the laws of physics and ignore the concept of time itself.
Once you try a comfort hoodie, you can't go back to regular hoodies. They're slightly weighted, super oversized. It's that perfect fit that makes you feel like you're wrapped in a blanket, but you get to look like you have your life together at the same exact time. And when I tell you, they have every color you could think of, from neutrals.
Quantum computers have the potential to be the most important, the most dangerous, and the most unpredictable invention of our lifetime. They can even become all three of those things all at the same time. We hear this term come up every now and again. It sounds very futuristic and speculative, but quantum computers are very real. They exist right now, and they are on the verge of becoming a big part of our daily lives. Luckily, you don't need to be a physicist to understand the role that these quantum machines could play in changing the world as we know it, and I'm here to guide you into the quantum realm. Let's go. Okay, Marvel's Ant-Man has some questionable physics at best, but one thing that Professor Pym does have right is that the smaller things get, the stranger the laws of physics that govern them will become. This is important to keep in mind as we go along. You've probably seen a quantum computer before. It looks pretty weird, more like some kind of a cross between a golden chandelier and a giant squid than anything we traditionally associate with a computer, but that's largely because our current viewpoint is a little too narrow. This thing is also a computer, the first computer actually, as in the first ever. It was found at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea and dates back to ancient Greece. It is known as the Antikythera mechanism. It was used to predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and the earth. It could have forecasted a solar eclipse decades in advance, the same as we can today. And this computer also looks pretty weird, although these shiny golden mechanisms you're seeing are just artistic recreations. The real artifact is actually a bunch of fragments encrusted with thousands of years worth of ocean gunk. Calculating machines have taken many forms over the centuries that they've been used by humankind, so in many ways the quantum computer is just a next phase of evolution, but in many other ways it's not that at all. Modern computers as we know them are defined by bits. A bit is the smallest unit of data that a computer can process and store. Bits are the building blocks of every piece of digital information you have ever experienced. A bit is always existing in one of two states, kind of like a switch. This is why we say that computers speak a binary language. The state of each bit is typically represented by either a 1 or a 0. But it can also be represented by on or off, up or down, left or right, as long as each bit is holding one of two potential values. This is binary computing. The physical manifestation of a bit is called a transistor. This is like an electronic switch, and again, it can exist in one of two potential states, on and off. So the more physical transistors you have, the more bits of information you can process at one time, which is an oversimplification, but it gets the point across. So we've been constantly trying to make these transistors smaller and smaller over time so that we can fit more transistors into increasingly smaller devices. This old desktop calculator from the 1960s used 250 transistors. A current model iPhone has 19 billion transistors in its main processor chip alone. To accomplish this, we have reduced the size of the transistor down to a width of just 3 nanometers. This is too small for the mind to truly comprehend and exist in one of two potential states, on and off. So the more physical transistors you have, the more bits of information you can process at one time, which is an oversimplification, but it gets the point across. So we've been constantly trying to make these transistors smaller and smaller over time so that we can fit more transistors into increasingly smaller devices. This old desktop calculator from the 1960s used 250 transistors. A current model iPhone has 19 billion transistors in its main processor chip alone. To accomplish this, we have reduced the size of the transistor down to a width of just 3 nanometers. This is too small for the mind to truly comprehend. It's only slightly wider than a strand of human DNA, which is 2.5 nanometers. It's possible that transistors could be reduced to the size of 1 nanometer by the end of this decade. There is a physical limitation on how small they can be, but regardless of how small you make a transistor, it is still limited by the binary nature of the bit. It can only ever be in one of two states. And this is where quantum computers come into play. A quantum computer uses its own unit of data measurement, which is the qubit, and these things can get pretty weird because qubits also represent ones and zeros, just like traditional bits, but qubits can also represent both 1 and 0 at the same time. They are non-binary, and this essentially gives qubits the potential to hold vastly more information. A quantum computer uses its own unit of data measurement, which is the qubit, and these things can get pretty weird because qubits also represent ones and zeros, just like traditional bits, but qubits can also represent both 1 and 0 at the same time. They are non-binary, and this essentially gives qubits the potential to hold vastly more information than traditional bits. And the physical manifestation of a qubit is achieved by manipulating the spin state of subatomic particles, either protons or electrons, causing them to spin up and down or left and right, creating two distinct states, your 1 and 0. Except quantum mechanics allows these subatomic particles to exist in multiple states simultaneously, so they can potentially be spinning in all directions all at once. Remember, the smaller things get, the stranger the laws that govern them. Here's what that looks like. If you put two bits together, we know that each bit will represent either a 1 or a 0. So regardless of the combination, you have 2 bits of information. But when you put 2 qubits together, you end up with the equivalent of 4 bits of information. This is because there are now 4 possible combinations of 1 and 0, because each qubit has the potential to be both values at the same time. So instead of just being 1 and 0, the pair could also be 0 and 1, or 1 and 1, or 0 and 0, all at the same time. If this is starting to sound familiar, then that's probably because you're already a quantum physicist, or you've heard about a thought experiment called Schrödinger's cat. The basic explanation of Schrödinger's idea is that you could take a cat and put it in a box, then put something else in the box that could potentially kill the cat, like a cup of poison. Then you seal the box. Again, thought experiment, no one put a cat in a box with poison, at least not that we know of. Now, as long as there is no way for us on the outside to know what's happened inside the box, then we have no evidence to suggest that the cat is dead or alive. Maybe it drank the poison, maybe it didn't. My cat eats plastic but refuses to eat chicken. They're unpredictable creatures, and as long as we have no observable method to predict the fate of the cat, then it may be considered simultaneously to be both dead and alive at the same time. This is referred to in quantum physics as a superposition, and it is a state in which our qubits are able to reside. They are 2 potential outcomes occurring simultaneously. Now, the trick here is that the moment you open the box and check on the well-being of the cat, that superposition collapses back into a binary. The cat will either be dead or alive. And the same applies to qubits. They eventually have to pick a side and resolve as either a 1 or a 0, but that time spent in a superposition allows the quantum computer to explore a vast network of potential combinations before arriving at a final answer. This superposition is where the quantum computer gets its power. When you start adding up all of the potential values from the superpositions of multiple qubits working together, then you start to get some pretty staggering numbers. Remember when we said that 2 qubits were able to store 4 possible values, making them equivalent to 4 standard bits? Well, combining just 20 qubits together will produce more than 1 million potential values. The largest quantum computer that exists today that we know of was built by IBM and has over 1,000 qubits of processing power. In 1 decade from now, IBM expects that will increase to 100,000 qubits. Now, what does that mean for you and me? The first thing that we should establish is that quantum computers are not just a better version of our existing computers. They are less of an evolution and more like an alternative mode of transportation. Quantum computers can take us to places that we have never been before, in the same way that your boat can take you places that your car can't drive, but a boat is not an improvement on a car or a substitute. So quantum computing will not be replacing 99% of the jobs that are currently done by existing supercomputers, and you definitely won't be adding one to your existing lineup of personal tech. The most simple reason for this is that in order for a quantum chip full of qubits to actually function, it needs to be held at a temperature as close to absolute zero as physically possible. This is as cold can be. It's colder than the vacuum of space. So in order to even operate a quantum computer, you first need to obtain the world's most powerful freezer. Oh, and even with the necessary cooling system, existing quantum computers can only operate for around 1 second at a time before the qubits lose their superposition state. The second problem is a bit more difficult to wrap your head around, but in simple terms, quantum computers are actually able to make mistakes, and
I'm done spending an obscene amount of money on takeout every week. Done.
I'm getting back on track with Factor. Fresh, never frozen meals prepared by chefs. This saves us so much time when we're chasing around our toddler. I can get all the nutrition I need without having to obsess over it. I never run out of taste.
They do it fairly often. This is a bit of a weird one because most of us are not really familiar with computers that make mistakes. Imagine if your calculator just occasionally gave you the wrong answer. And existing quantum computers tend to have error rates that sit between 1 in 100 at worst and 1 in 1,000 at best. It's been speculated that in order for a quantum computer to be truly practical, the error rate needs to be reduced to at least 1 in 1 million. This comes down to the nature of qubits and their superpositions. Each qubit on its own is inherently unstable, and when you begin combining multiple qubits together, that instability will only multiply, essentially meaning that the more capable your quantum computer is, the more likely it will be to make an error. With great power comes great instability. But even with this factor of unpredictability taken into account, it is still more than possible for existing quantum computers to solve math problems in a matter of seconds that would take a conventional computer thousands of years to complete. This actually has the potential to become a really big problem. But is it one that you should be worried about? Most iPhone users probably missed this announcement, but in February 2024, Apple revealed that iMessage had been cryptographically upgraded with post-quantum security, meaning that even a sophisticated quantum computer attack would not be able to brute force hack your iMessage account, which is good news, but it also demonstrates that Apple has enough concern about the potential quantum of hacking to take it seriously. And Apple is one of the leaders in this current move towards quantum-safe encryption, which means that there are still plenty of online services that you probably use that have not taken the same measure. That includes emails, bank accounts, cloud storage, even cryptocurrency wallets like Bitcoin that are literally built on cryptography. It's in the name. These private keys can be brute force hacked by quantum computers. One of the biggest problems we have right now is that the arms race towards quantum supremacy is not being won by the United States. This is an area where China has taken the early lead. They have the largest quantity of powerful and stable quantum computers. In 2020, then-President Donald Trump announced that the US government would be spending $1 billion per year on quantum computing in America. By 2022, the Chinese Communist Party had committed $15 billion per year for their own quantum development. So that is a bit scary, but is there anything that any of us normal people can really do about it? Well, not really, but it's maybe worth keeping an eye on which services you use that are upgrading to post-quantum encryption, and if it's something that you're concerned about, then maybe consider switching to services with higher levels of encryption. It's not a fun thing to think about, but this is the world we live in. Now, I want to leave you with something fun to think about: the potential importance of quantum computers for doing good things. Things so immeasurably good that they will change the course of human history towards the science fiction Star Trek utopian future that has so far only been dreamed about. If there's one thing that our existing computer systems are really lacking, it would be an ability to understand nature and the physical world. Traditionally, computers have been pretty bad at grasping very important concepts like biology and weather. For example, we can't cure cancer because we still do not understand cancer. 20 years ago, scientists were able to map the human genome with help from supercomputers of the time. It was an amazing accomplishment, but even with vastly more powerful machines available in the modern day, we are failing to make meaningful breakthroughs in medical science. One of the biggest problems here is that forces of nature like diseases and viruses also operate on the quantum level, just like the qubits. and that means that they have their own superpositions where subatomic particles within the virus are existing in multiple states simultaneously, meaning that just like Schrodinger's cat, there is no right answer until we open the box. And when it comes to opening the box on the nature of life, the universe, and everything, we need to be able to meet nature on its own level, which goes all the way down to the foundation of the atoms that make up the universe. Nature is operating at the quantum scale, and that's where we need to go in order to finally understand it. We're not there yet. It might happen in my lifetime, or yours. It might not. But for the first time in the 3 billion year history of life on Earth, we are pretty close to figuring it all out. And that in itself is a pretty amazing thing to be around for.
All right, y'all. We out of here for the day. Dang. Oh, my whole...
Are you ready to see your brand on TV? Your competitors will win.
To encompass everyone in this room. Feel everyone in this room surrounded by this energy of love and compassion.
We out of here, y'all. Glad I got to give y'all some extra time.
As you exhale, the bubble expands further and now encompasses everyone in this city block. Feel everyone in this city block feeling love and compassion. As you exhale, imagine this energy permeating the entire city. Now the country. Now see a vision of the earth in front of you. And as you exhale, see this energy encompassing the entire earth. Feel yourself connected to every living creature, plant,